Hey there, welcome to episode 181 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I am your host, as usual, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 10:09 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in Greater Vegas on Friday, August 14th, 2026. We normally publish new episodes on Fridays, usually in the morning. We record them sometimes in the morning on Friday, sometimes not. But so we'll come close. I think it'll be morning in Vegas when this is published. I will say there may be some loud noises. If I haven't mentioned Noisy Raymond before, you will get to meet him, I think. Maybe. Upstairs. Welcome to the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. Now, if you're not familiar with it or Cafe Genius in general, I think we're going to do every 10 episodes a more detailed backgrounder. So you can run back to 180. I think I did it. Quick rundown. Cafe, 2 F's, 1 E, no accent. Sorry, I had to pause there. No accent on the E. Cafe Centro. It's an homage to them. A fine little coffee shop in South Park in San Francisco, across the street from the ballpark. It was the Pac-Bell ballpark, then the AT&T ballpark, and then now it's the Oracle ballpark. And then when Oracle goes under for their AI investment failures, I guess it will be the OpenAI ballpark, the SpaceX ballpark. Who knows? Cafe Centro was where startups start. It was a quaint little spot. I had been there several times. It was in a park, South Park, grass, trees, picnic tables. It was a nice spot. They didn't really survive much after the pandemic, sadly. I've said for a while now that we need to have Cafe Centros, plural, here in Vegas. And in fact, we do have several fine coffee shops. That's where ideas go to percolate a little bit. See what I did there? Genius for the genius lunches we used to have in the Downtown Project days. I was never part of the Downtown Project per se, but it was a gathering of people pursuing their entrepreneurial endeavors. Every once in a while, there'd be hey, what are you doing tomorrow? We're going to get together for lunch. So an ad hoc group, whoever showed up or whoever had the time, lunch, conversation, discussion, catching up on gossip, who needs what, who's doing what, who's finished doing what, etc. The Impresarios audio program you're listening to now, Impresarios with 2 S's, is a uncommon but still correct spelling. Those are the people making things happen, and ideally we'll talk to some of them for, 170 episodes. I've been the proxy, although I am making interesting things happen, slowly but surely. So I do the talking, but surely we'll have other guests one of these days. And so that's the quick rundown. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary. Today it's a little bit longer than brief, but it's still pretty short. And the links for today's episode, the 2 usual links, and then one more of a historical background link. It's not completely relevant, but it's a reference. It's a reference. So on that note, let us begin on this lovely cooling off Friday morning here in Vegas. Summary. Here in Greater Vegas, some would like to fancy us an innovation hub, perhaps even a global innovation hub, or words to that effect. And someday that may be true. One milestone along the path to that goal is an informed public. And since innovation figures prominently in our goal to be an innovation hub, it could figure prominently in the journey innovation. So, yeah, we need more innovation locally. Civic innovation, community-focused, community-centric, looking within before we look without, things like this. By the way, the cover art for today's episode, which I just finished doing, YouTube has started marking some of the podcast episodes as AI, so I need to update the description of the entire show. I've mentioned this before. I write all the shows, and I am a human, and I speak into a microphone. I'm human. I'm not cloning my voice or anything like this. If I did, I would make it better. So the part that is AI, which I've said more than once across all my shows, when I make the cover art image, It's a single frame, 1400 by 1400 pixels, PNG usually when I post it, and then it gets converted to a JPEG, probably shrunk, scaled down. That is any combination of generative AI, font faces of various kinds, color effects, or effects in general on the fonts. Occasionally, let me think. I don't often apply effects to imagery other than background removal, rotation, things like this. Occasionally, I have done local image editing and so on, crops and so on. What else? Background removal, and then I composite the image. So there'll be something from generative AI sometimes. I use a lot of clip art, pictures of microphones and espresso demi-tasks and things like this. So when it says AI, it's exclusively the single frame cover art image, which YouTube converts to a video. So it's one frame of video. So just got to get that out there. At the same time, I made the cover art for today's episode, and it's always funny to me. Occasionally, whatever tools you use, they will use actual images of the Las Vegas Strip. Other times, they will use parts of images and splice them together. So you'll end up with different landmark, like different well-known parts of the Strip. In this cover art image, the link is on the wrong side. The Neon Museum and Fremont are on the Strip. What else? It's just there's a number of things you can probably point them out. It's almost like one of those images where you scan over it and try to find the little Easter eggs, and it's sort of like that. But the cover art is not the show, so I don't spend too much time worrying about that. I don't really even spend too much time on generating the cover art. I mean, I don't slap it together, but it's still not something I'm not a graphic artist or anything, so I do what I can with the help of modernity. That said, the links for today's episode, Cafe Genius homepage. Don't forget it's CAFFE without an accent. GENIUS, cafegenius.org. One of these days I should figure out whether it's going to be like a business entity of some sort. It could very easily be a think tank of one. One of these days we will reform the Genius Roundtable Cohort 2. I got to get the word out, which is part of the topic of today's episode. My reach is very small. I've been limiting myself to LinkedIn, or I've been limited to using LinkedIn. Not sufficient. You may have heard me say that before. And the host profile page, like everything. I've had this page for 5.5 years, I think it is now, since March, 5 years ago. So buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo has links to all of my audio productions. There's some biographical information. There are some affiliate links if you're interested in supporting these efforts that way. There's also project links. I use the products that are in the affiliate links, by the way, and some biographical information. And the Buy Me an Update audio program is published there first, so there's links to that. The Buy Me an Update program used to be published exclusively at buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts. Nobody goes to Buy Me a Coffee for podcasts, though, so I publish it 2 hours later on Mondays to the usual places. And finally, the Bricolage content management system. It makes an appearance when I'm talking about Salon. I used to work at salon.com, if you're familiar. So they developed their own content management system early. I think it might have been pre-WordPress. It was purpose-built for publishing, and a lot of the people that founded Salon, this was a long time ago. Let's see, this would have been 95, 90, 95, 90, sometime in the early 90s. They went public, I think, in 95, I think. Anyway, so purpose-built content management system for people from the old school publishing industry. So a lot of it is a throwback of sorts, which is not a bad thing, but it does suggest some of the reason that we are presented with information the way we are today, hence the reference. On that note, let's start the show after I get some water. Hang on. All right. News. So first of all, I myself worked in the online news world, as a software developer, we owned something in Silicon Valley because Sunnyvale, where I lived, didn't have any local news. So we did some of that there. But I also worked at a company called Salon Media. I think it was Salon Media Group. They owned salon.com. And when I joined the company, they had been public for 10 years and had one profitable quarter out of 40 as a public company. I don't know before they went public. I'm going to guess also not profitable. It had successfully written all over it. Had success written all over it by the people who worked there, perhaps, because it's a bunch of writers. Okay, anyway, I don't have writers. It's just me. I was there initially to implement something that today we find everywhere as a sort of an expected feature, the ability for normal people to post comments on the same page on which an article appeared. This actually ruffled some feathers on the professional journalist and writer side of the company. We were all in the same room, except for the remote people. So some of the comments were from the other side of we had a big giant, not an open floor plan, but cubicles, but you could stand up and see everybody. So, what is this? What are we doing? The problem was that they were skilled and ethical. They were following journalism ethics and general writer ethos. They had rules to follow. And if anyone from anywhere could just write anything they wanted to right there, right next to what they had written, that would diminish the value of their work. And I have to say at the time, I was not buying it. But looking back from today, I think they were not wrong. Yes. Modernity. Generally, and I worked there in 2005. So that was a while ago. Generally speaking, for as old as salon.com was back then, and is much older now, but still around, from what I understand, it was still scrappy and trying out new ideas. The letters to the editor feature becoming online commenting was one thing. Inclusion of video and other features as part of their content offerings, and eventually they tried having a podcast, which they do today have one, but this was 2005. Things were still very early. Eventually, their pursuit of Open Salon, which was not completely successful, but was a big swing. Basically, a community news-ish platform to bring some of those commenters into the fold a little bit more. And sometimes this is how innovation works. And by the way, Open Salon was something that was conceived when I was still there, and we're like, good luck. It's how innovation works, though, and sometimes it's not how it works. But there's always some learning either way. So if innovation falls flat, learn something from it is the advice I would have for you. It's the same reason we should have failure talks instead of always telling people how awesome they are. And I mean, we hear a lot from successful entrepreneurs and so on, but we don't hear as much from the ones that didn't work out, especially if they're successful later. We should hear about how do they get there by failing a few times. Thomas Edison surely had something to say about that. The old ways. Now, for as innovative and forward-looking as Salon could be now and then when I was there, and before and after, it was still following the same old print media playbook. So articles as standalone missives, the inverted pyramid, some use of modern features like inter-article links, but for the most part, the thinking was still about recycled paper and barrels of ink, except in digital form. So you could have one article and it would contain, well, anyway, in fairness, one of the early Salon regimes, and there were a few over the years, probably still a cycle turning today, had built a content management system called Bricolage, which we introduced earlier, which was purpose-built for the needs of a publication such as Salon, with workflow and content permissions, template flexibility, which served those needs. So they could have different sections with different banners and headlines and fonts and advertisement, inventory placement, and so on. Behind the scenes, there was an editor desk, the writer desk, so they could move content around during a review process and decide what to change. And I think there was change management and so on. So, it was built for what they needed. It was written in Perl, probably still is. That last part is something of a challenge, but Bricolage was in use for a good long time until I departed Salon, and I suggested as a publication with their staff and needs, authoring and maintaining software was not a great idea. It should not be one of their core focal areas. I suggested that they go with WordPress, for example, and contract out particular customizations, any customization that they needed, contract it out to WordPress developers. They didn't need to maintain software engineering resources and then not know what to do with them. But maintaining the well out of license Oracle database with all of their article content, along with this now ancient content management system, was not something they were good at. I remember suggesting that the New York Times is not inventing new printing presses. They shouldn't be either, so to speak. So now I was out the door. Enough. So here we are today. So that was a long time ago. I guess that was 2005-ish. It was a long time ago. Or was it? Here in Greater Vegas, if we look at news websites, even those for legacy TV news stations like 8, 3, and 5, and whatever else we have going on, as well as and even the independent stuff, the Current, the Independent, various vertical news sites for sports and real estate and business and this and that, they all seem to be glorified blog websites when viewed from outside as consumers of their content. I don't know what their management system is behind the scenes. Did they have an editor's desk and so on? And they continue to publish articles as standalone items in something of an inverted pyramid style. So we're still thinking in print, but reading it digitally, if that makes sense. Like, oh, we must present the story, and then 2/3 of the content needs to be the rest of the story because you can't assume anyone read a previous article. So one thing that proceeds over some amount of time, just assume they know what you're talking about and they're not going to read previous articles. Or it's kind of a mess, actually. I think it's inconsistent. They might be using WordPress. I don't know. They all sort of look the same, really, when you think about it. A lot of images to catch the eye, native ads here and there. Oh, a lot of native ads in some cases. Sometimes too many native ads, mostly mobile friendly across different websites, often attempts at accessibility, nothing too interesting going on. So there's not been any real innovation in the way news, put that in quotes, is presented. Sometimes it's advertising presenting as news, native ads. I actually had a very, very brief, like 2 messages back and forth conversation with ProPublica about some of their efforts on local news or the news platform in general. I think there's curiosity, but not too much action just yet. Although if you look for Knight Ritter, they have some JavaScript tools for presentation layer, front end for things like timelines and maps. So they're onto something. Like every news article should have a map. Absolutely. Like 90% of the time here in Vegas, the news will be like, oh yeah, I was over on Jones and Decatur. And you're like, just have a map. Just have a place mark or two, or here was the route that they took when they were chasing the person. These tools have been around for decades. We could be using them. I digress. Here is one secret which was true at Salon and remains true today. Whenever you see native advertising, a roadblock ad layout, so that's with an ad at the top and on the side, popovers, and in general what are known as inventory, the places where ads can go. The more inventory, the more opportunities to deliver ads, period. That's it. In the most annoying cases, you might find yourself reading a 500-word article about a 10-word tweet the existence of that page enables more ad slots, more inventory for paid advertising. So you need to click on those pages. A photo gallery with 1 image per page with ads on each page. You get the idea. So really, news is just a way to deliver advertising. And it's a sad fact, but those were the conversations. As a public company, for example, Salon had those conversations. How do we deliver more ads? Along with advertising, there's the paywall, which usually it means you really need to pay to subscribe to a particular platform, unless you know how to get around some of these blocks, But this is the formula. Some recurring subscription of some kind, sometimes relatively low, perhaps a promotion for some window of time. Subscribe now, 3 months for 99 cents or whatever it is. Because, especially if you're a public company, having a subscriber base is valuable. It's part of the business model. Doesn't mean they're going to do a good job delivering you the news. And then display ads on every page. As many pages as possible. Rinse, repeat. It has been done every which way since the turn of the century. And that I mean literally. Because we're in the 21st century. So stop turning the crank, I say. By the way, this is the nature of this episode is still entrepreneurial. So stop changing crank. The idea we're thinking about then is reimagining the way we share information at scale. The headline, the lead, the deck, the tease, all the old school layout and attention grabbing techniques are done on the daily, whether it's thumbnails for videos or headlines for, well, anything. The title that you select on YouTube on your video, the cover art I use for this podcast episode. It's all about grabbing that attention for the clicks. Then share links to social media platforms, get the likes and the reshares and comments all over the place, up the algorithm score, then do it all again. Is the goal to inform? Is it to get those clicks? Unfortunately, we know the answer. The good news, even though there are some who believe the web is dead, that there is no need to do anything creative anymore, thanks to everyone using Twitter and Facebook. This has never been true, by the way. I mean, there is reason to be creative and innovative. And while I do hear this now and then, this falsehood has faded, which is a good thing. So people are still doing creative things online. It's been how many JavaScript frameworks and libraries and web components can we come up with? The question is more. But this resignation to the same news website structure and format everywhere is it's getting a little old. We're leaving a lot on the table. There are some platforms that do it differently. These are where some inspiration may be found, but we can also look beyond examples to protocols, tools, and methods of modernity, which is where we are now. And modernity will be around for a little while anyway, so we can spend a little bit more time thinking about it and applying it. Unfortunately, generative AI is making it all too easy to spew legacy-style articles for other AI to consume and then train themselves on. So while the snake eats its own tail, we can start looking at ways, or we can start to look at ways, that's how I wrote it, to present information to humans, that's us, and to make it easier for humans to engage each other and these items for purposes of conversation, debate, and maybe even some learning now and then. So it isn't just, oh, let me get around this text so I can see them ads. We can actually return to a place where the information that gets shared is useful. Maybe some legitimate analysis that shows the work, like the numbers and where they came from, the equations, the models, all that. How much water do we have right now? Well, I'll tell you, we have the least amount of water ever in Lake Mead. When they filled it in 1930, there was less because it was filling. But right now it's at the lowest level since then. That should be visible somewhere and how we got here. For myself, I am seeing far too much generated content in places where there used to be humans doing the creating. And this is a problem. There are better ways. And I've already told you, my workflow, I'm also, I'm a programmer now and then. I don't like AI doing the coding for me. That doesn't go in a good direction. Federated, decentralized, federate and decentralize, those are commands. Federate, decentralize, and more. One of the fundamental new technologies to embrace, if we are smart, is federation. This is the second to the last section, by the way. There's one more after this. So yeah, federation, decentralizing engagement and interaction. So with the content, wherever it is, and our fellow humans around that content. So you don't have to sign up for everything. No more handle grabs. This is a real thing. And if you're using Blue Sky or using the one that the rich people are backing and the AT protocol, if you're using any of the ActivityPub platforms, Mastodon, PixelFed, PeerTube, Lemmy, and the list is growing. And by the way, if you're curious, Mastodon is similar to, but not quite the same as Twitter X, Blue Sky. PixelFed, similar to sort of Instagram. PeerTube, similar to sort of YouTube. Lemmy, similar to sort of Reddit, and the list goes on. And that's just recreating existing experiences. It could be a good time to try out some new ideas. So you're already using ActivityPub for that second set there. And if you're using email, then you're already using SMTP, that's Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP-based message transfers, and so on. So the notion of decentralization and federate, you can have your own mail server, you can use multiple other mail servers, et cetera, right? So these are not new ideas, but they are making a comeback. You may know this. The city of Las Vegas worked with Code for Vegas and Code for America over a decade ago to establish the city's open data platform, which persists today and is even maintained with some data mostly current, sort of, It could use a little bit of work there. Not a ringing endorsement. I wish it was being maintained as a first class service. Maybe that will make a comeback. I know they've hired some people into the GIS group, the Geographical Information Systems group, and the open data systems are, I believe, managed in that group. So good, maybe. But if we put the existing open data to use, if we have demand for it, then we can increase the supply and keep it current. Right? If people are using it, then there's more reason to make it better, make it more. Fun fact, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I'm the managing director, and it's the rebooted and renamed Code for Vegas I just mentioned, was an open data capture platform initiative. That's one of the first things we established that could use, some civic volunteers to jump in on it. In other words, it hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but if you're interested, the idea here is not only to use the data already there, but to add more. Open data capture. There is a lot of potential to make the operation of the Oasis, where we live here in Greater Vegas, certainly the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, more transparent, or rather transparent at all. We should be able to see what's happening. Show me the numbers. Visible would be a good start. I wrote some work to do, but there's more than that. There's a lot of work to do. What about the blockchain? We always used to hear about the blockchain here in Vegas. Isn't that going to save us all from the future? I think I read that somewhere. Well, there may be a place for a blockchain in the mix. Who can say? What about the proactive use of encryption and email signatures and maybe some post-quantum cryptography? And let's not forget long-range wireless networking to connect people in an emergency in cooperation with CERT, perhaps. Have I mentioned that I'm a CERT volunteer? That's the Community Emergency Response Team. I'm a CERT member here in Vegas. I do need to take a refresh training course one of these days in the fall, perhaps. But yeah, how does CERT volunteers communicate? Because we can use something like LoRa. That's long range. Oh, I think it's LO. Yeah, I think the A is lowercase. Long range, like Wi-Fi, for example, 3 or 4 miles, I think it is, or it might be kilometers. You can get these devices that do not depend on cell towers or your internet connection being up, nor does it need satellites. Your CERT volunteer cohort should all be reachable without these modern conveniences, because those might not be around in a crisis. And they should all be bridged to FirstNet, which is the network that emergency responders use. That was a lesson from the 9/11 situation when nobody could communicate with each other. So everybody has a FirstNet access capability, so they can all be using the same radios, same compatible devices, and so on. So not meant for civilians. So the CERT communication network would then bridge to FirstNet, so you'd be able to interact with first responders. And as the rule says, you don't want to be where the first responders are going first. That means you are in the worst place. All of these things and more can emerge from an active civic innovation effort from you and your friends, all easier if we put some pieces in place to enable people to have any idea that any of this is going on. So this is the nature of the effort. People need to know before they can participate. So the problems to address, and the reason I'm talking about this today is because this is the thing I'm working on right now, among other things. Now, why on earth would any of this be interesting or worthwhile to pursue when we already have our legacy press outlets? And who knows how many content creators running around with their phones capturing the same views of everything over and over and over? We have X and Blue Sky and Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and Discord and all the rest. Isn't that enough? You tell me. This is usually where I would point out that, or I'd point you to Cory Doctorow's latest book, but let's say for the moment that all these platforms and our local gatekeepers are not really interested in you and what you are up to, nor are they interested in the success of people people around you, or you, starting businesses, launching new products, developing meetup groups, and who knows what else. They just want your fans and followers to also sign up and view their advertising. That's what matters. That is the impoopification of which Cory Doctorow has written and spoken on many times. A functioning town or city needs an informed populace, and that doesn't happen when there are gatekeepers. Try to get our local newspapers here in Vegas or news channels of any kind to mention something. Go ahead, I'll wait. Hey, I'm launching a new product. Yeah? Who are you? You're going to have to get a friend in the Chamber of Commerce or in the city government, or yeah, you don't matter yourself, not yet. Or you can donate some cyber trucks to the city, to the police department if possible. And we cannot possibly stay up to date or receive important updates and analysis when there are silos involved. And we're talking to you, LinkedIn. Unless you're following the right people, you'll never know. If you need to get 1 million followers before anybody will see anything you post, well, there is a problem. That's not how towns and cities work. Sometimes one person is trying to do something important, right? Chicken and egg problem. Our global innovation hub needs to examine itself first. That just sounds funny. And ponder what it means to enable and encourage innovation right here in our little oasis. And that begins with things like information flow, discovery, and communication. So some of these things just don't happen, or they're very difficult, or you must be cool enough to warrant a response. I can't even tell you how many people I've tried to reach out to in the past 6 months regarding the Smarter Smart City Challenge, the City Camp event, which we've canceled because zero interest. So if you are depending on other people to help get the word out, you are sometimes on your own here in Vegas. So having media or communication channels that do not have gatekeepers, at least not in that way, might be a benefit. It might be part of the innovation process. Knowing what's happening is half the battle. Finally, last point, or last item in the final point. By pursuing this stuff with open source ethos, civic volunteers, and an awareness that good ideas can come from anywhere, and we should encourage those, not keep them out on the other side of the velvet rope, and we can move in that direction by thinking outside the box and enabling and encouraging others to do the same, such that everyone has an opportunity to encounter these new ideas and maybe, just maybe, jump into this themselves. There's nothing worse than I have an idea and then not being in a place where people will at least say, oh, tell me about it. That can be very difficult here. And yes, there are a couple of events now and then. I'll just leave it there because otherwise we'll have another hour. So we shall see are the final 3 words of this presentation today. Thank you for listening as always. Don't forget to check out buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, not to spend money. You don't need to, but to find links to all my other various content creations. I talk about startups all the time, and I wish at some point to have guests again to talk about their startups and activities and endeavors, especially as related to the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem that we may see benefits from at some point. Now, some people will say, oh, Vegas is a hub of innovation. Look at all these self-driving cars built by companies that are not actually here. They've been developed somewhere else and they're testing them here. Okay, yeah, that's not invalid. Was there any way we could bring employees from tech companies to Vegas and have them relocate with their companies and gentrify the place? Well, that's in the cards. Yes, that could happen. What about if we reduce the number of people working in the hospitality industry? Wouldn't we have to reduce the number of people that need hospitality? Maybe. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It'd be interesting if more people could find these pieces of information without following the correct people on LinkedIn, or hoping that maybe one of our local journalists will get an itch and be able to scratch it by interviewing somebody doing something interesting, or yeah, who knows. But yeah, I've spent so much time trying to reach out to everyone, elected officials, city staffers in the various cities, the county, teachers, business owners. Yeah, it's got to be a better way, because my reach is not that. I mean, I didn't talk to 1 million people. There are 2.4 million people in Vegas, in Clark County, Greater Vegas. So I can reach 1,000 of them. That's like 0. So anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for listening, as always. And it is Friday. I hope you have a safe weekend. Or, well, whenever you're listening to this, it could be any day of any week or month in any year from this point forward. So make the best of it, make the most of it. And if you have a startup idea you want to pursue, don't sit around listening to this podcast. You should be doing it and seeing what happens. Take care now. Thank you for listening once again. Bye-bye.